High blood pressure. You've heard of it, for sure, but do you really know what it means for your health, and maybe more importantly, what you can actually do about it? You know, it's one of the most common health issues on the planet, but it's often kind of misunderstood. So let's dive right in and unpack the numbers, the risks, and the really powerful lifestyle changes that can help you take back control.
The answer? Hypertension, or high blood pressure. And that word silent is everything. Millions upon millions of people are walking around with it and have no idea, because, well, it often doesn't have any obvious symptoms. That number, 16 million, in just one country, it really gives you a sense of just how big this thing is globally. It's a quiet problem for sure, but one that can lead to some very loud, very serious consequences if it's ignored.
Okay, so whenever you get your blood pressure checked, you see those two numbers, right? The top one, systolic, that's the pressure in your arteries every time your heart gives a good squeeze and pushes blood out. The bottom one, diastolic, that's the pressure when your heart is chilling out between beats. So think of it as peak pressure and resting pressure. Both of them are absolutely crucial to understanding what's going on with your heart health.
So here's our game plan. First, we're going to cover the basics. What exactly is high blood pressure, and what are the risks? Then we're going to flip the script and talk solutions. We'll get into the amazing power of your diet and getting yourself moving. And we'll wrap up by seeing how even the tiniest changes can make a massive, massive difference.
All right, let's get right to it. What exactly is high blood pressure?
Here are the numbers that really matter. Medically speaking, hypertension gets diagnosed when that top number, the systolic, is consistently 140 or higher, or when the bottom number, the diastolic, is consistently 90 or higher. Now that word consistently is super important. One high reading at the doctor's office isn't a diagnosis, but a pattern of high readings, that's when we're talking hypertension. It's kind of like the official line in the sand. So now that we know what the numbers mean, the next questions are pretty obvious. Who's most at risk, and are there any signs we should be looking out for?
You know, when doctors are looking at risk, they don't just look at one thing. They kind of put factors into two buckets, major and minor. The major ones are the big-ticket items, things like chronic kidney disease, diabetes, or history of heart disease. The minor ones include lifestyle stuff like smoking, being over 55, or having high LDL cholesterol. The more of these boxes you tick, the higher your risk profile gets.
Now, even though we call it silent, sometimes there are whispers, warning signs. Things like headaches that start at the back of your neck and kind of creep forward, dizziness, a ringing in your ears, maybe even nosebleeds or heart palpitations. But, and this is so important, you absolutely cannot rely on symptoms to know if you have high blood pressure. So many people feel totally fine. That's why getting it checked regularly is just non-negotiable. Okay, enough about the problem. Let's talk about solutions, because this is where you have an incredible amount of power. And we're going to start with what is arguably one of the most effective tools you have, your diet. And this right here shows you just how much power you have. Just look at these numbers. Losing around 22 pounds or 10 kilos can drop your systolic pressure by a huge 5 to 20 points. Adopting a healthier diet, something like the DASH diet, can knock it down another 8 to 14 points. Even just cutting back on your salt intake can lower it by 2 to 8 points. I mean, this shows that these aren't just nice ideas. They are powerful, proven treatments that don't come in a pill bottle. And that really brings us to a fundamental point here. Keeping your body weight in a healthy range is one of the absolute cornerstones of managing blood pressure. The connection between obesity and hypertension is just so incredibly strong. So managing your weight isn't just about how you look. It's a direct investment in your heart's future. Of course, it's not just about what's on your plate. Beyond your diet, how you move your body and the habits you try to avoid are just as critical. So what does a good exercise plan actually look like? Well, it's probably simpler than you're imagining. The recommendation is pretty straightforward. Shoot for 30 to 60 minutes of moderate activity. We're talking a brisk walk, a swim, a bike ride on most days of the week. Ideally, that's 5 to 7 days. The real key here, consistency. Making it a regular part of your life is where the magic happens. I want to just pause on this for a second, because the message is just so incredibly powerful. When it comes to preventing not just high blood pressure, but a whole host of cardiovascular diseases, almost nothing beats quitting smoking. Every single cigarette you smoke gives you a temporary spike in blood pressure, and over time, that damage really adds up. The message could not be clearer. If you smoke, quitting is the most powerful move you can make for your heart. Period. And that same idea of moderation definitely applies to alcohol. As you can see, the guidelines are all about weekly limits. For men,
The goal is to stay at or below 4 units a week. For women, it's 2 units or less. Sticking to those kinds of limits is another really important piece of the puzzle.
And that brings us to our last section, which, honestly, ties this whole thing together. You might be looking at all of these recommendations and feeling a little overwhelmed, and I get that. But the big takeaway message is that you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to change everything overnight.
Let me just put this into perspective for you. Look at this. A tiny, seemingly insignificant drop in your systolic blood pressure, we're talking just 3 points, has this massive ripple effect. That small change is linked to an 8% drop in deaths from stroke and a 5% drop in deaths from heart disease. It's just such a powerful reminder that every single point matters. Every small, positive choice adds up to a huge, life-saving impact.
So what's the final word? Well, while your genes might play a part, what we've seen here is that your daily choices, what you eat, how you move, the habits you build, are incredibly powerful tools. You're not just a passenger on this ride, you have a huge amount of say in managing your own blood pressure.
So I'll leave you with this question to think about. Looking at everything we've just talked about, from taking a walk after dinner, to being a little more mindful of salts, to tossing some extra veggies on your plate, what's the one small, doable change you can commit to starting today? Because that first small step, that's the beginning of a much healthier future.